I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. This is a special day, and we're paying tribute to a special lady and a special gentleman that did a lot of things for our city. And before I get started, I just want to thank Dr. Bailey for working with us on this. He worked with Doug Lutz. Doug's here. Where's Doug? Doug Lutz here is my Director of Constituent Services, and Dr. Bailey and I sat down about a year ago, and started talking about making today a reality. And so to Robin Otten and Doug Chaplin and everybody at Family and Community Services, all the folks here at the Housing Authority, thank you so much for making today possible. February is Black History Month. We all know that. So it's appropriate that today that we're here to honor an outstanding African American woman who pioneered fair housing in the city of Albuquerque. Mrs. Carnis Salisbury graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree from Wiley College in Marshall, Texas. She was a teacher. She was the Dean of Women at Sam Houston University, highly accomplished. She received her master's degree in theology from the Gammon Theological Institute in Atlanta, Georgia. Carnis worked in state and federal governments in Washington, D.C., and right here in our hometown of Albuquerque. She had a history of working with equal employment opportunity commissions and related organizations concerned about equal rights for all people. Carnis was known for her directness, her tenacity, her determination, and her steadfastness. She was a longtime civil rights activist. She was a community leader, and she was a living treasure to many who knew her. And if you could just look at her photograph there, and you can see the spirit even in the photograph. It's just amazing. And her beautiful daughters are with us today, and I know we're going to have them speak on behalf of Carnis today. In the 1960s, and I was born in 1962, but in the 1960s, Carnis, along with her husband of 51 years, Oliver Salisbury, worked together to achieve fair housing legislation here in Albuquerque. And although Oliver's name is not on the building today, we acknowledge his courage to stand up for the right of all citizens of Albuquerque to live where they choose. Let me say that again. It seems odd today that we'd have to have a sentence that said the right to live where you choose. And it's because of Carnis and Oliver that many of those rights are in place today. I'd also like to note that Carnis Salisbury received the City of Albuquerque's Human Rights Award in 1990 to recognize her outstanding contributions and her achievements. There's a documented history of discrimination against certain groups of people as stated in restrictive covenants contained in real estate contracts. There was a time in Albuquerque when an African American family could not purchase a home in certain neighborhoods even if they had the financial resources to do so. Carnis and Oliver Salisbury thought that was wrong, and they were right, and they worked hard throughout their lives to change that discriminatory practice. Carnis Salisbury was a civil rights pioneer. She was a champion of the African American community and a pillar for justice in the eyes of many. The name of Carnis Salisbury on the City of Albuquerque's Housing Authority building will be a right tribute as a constant reminder that she was an advocate for civil rights, she was an advocate for human dignity, and she was an advocate for fair housing. And I'm proud to be the mayor of Albuquerque during this significant dedication of the Carnis Salisbury building. I know we have a lot of friends and a lot of family here. We were having some discussions earlier. A lot of you folks obviously knew Carnis and Oliver personally. I want to thank you for coming today. Many good friends here with us today. I want to turn it now over to Patricia Salisbury, who's Carnis's eldest daughter, to share her thoughts. And at that point, we'll have Dr. Bailey come up and speak as well as Linda Bridge. And then we'll have some closing remarks, and then we'll reveal the sign on this beautiful building. So please help me welcome Patricia Salisbury.
Thank you, Mayor Barry, and the other dignitaries from the city of Albuquerque. And I want to thank all of our friends that are here, our many friends that we've made in Albuquerque. Thank you for being here. I'd like to recognize the other members of my family who are here and have them stand. My sister, Olivia Salisbury. My cousin, Janice Hightower. my nephew and his wife, Sean and Sharon Harris. Wave your hands because you're already standing. Okay, thank you. For as long as I can remember, my parents were involved in housing. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and we never lived alone, ever. We lived in a house, but we always had other people in our house, people that couldn't stay other places, like truckers who were on the move, who had to have a place to stay during their runs. So we had truckers, different ones staying at our house at different times. We had black women that stayed in our house over the weekends. They lived with white families and worked in white homes during the week, but they wanted to come to the neighborhood and be at home on the weekends. So my parents were always interested in providing housing to those people who were not able to find housing easily. When they moved to Albuquerque in 1961, my dad was in the hospital at the VA, and my mother was just out here. We didn't know we were going to have to move to Albuquerque. It turned out we did, and so my mother and father set about trying to find us a place to live. Well, I grew up very middle class. I'm a middle class black kid from D.C., and we wanted to maintain our standard of living. And my parents soon found out that African Americans weren't shown houses outside of the South Broadway area or the Kirtland Addition. And a professor from UNM happened to be selling his home in the university area himself, not through a realtor. And he agreed to sell my parents a house at 924 Manzano Northeast, near San Mateo and Constitution. Well, my family paid the down payment, all ready to move in. All the neighbors, we learned, sent a petition around the neighborhood to ask that we not move there. And in fact, a group of the neighbors came over and offered my mom and dad the price of the house not to move there. Well, we moved there anyway. When we moved in, the neighbors on both sides put newspaper and paper bags on over the windows facing our backyard so they wouldn't have to look at us. So that was our introduction. That was our welcome to Albuquerque. But as years went on, I'll have to tell you, when that man died next door, after about, how many years, Livy? 30, 40. His wife asked my dad to be one of the pallbearers. They had become friends. And you know, this happens when people get to know other people. And it took a lot. I don't know if I would have been able to do that. But my parents stood there. People got to know them. The neighborhood got to know us. And in fact, the Albuquerque community really got to know something about what African Americans are like. I want to thank the city for this acknowledgement, this honor. I am so sure, I'm really sure that Mom and Daddy are really happy today. Thank you.
I think Carnis and Oliver may be with us today.
I think they are.
Patricia, that's a sad and interesting and wonderful story all at the same time. And you really hit a key point. It's one of the things that Albuquerque is becoming known for, and it's one of the things that we should be the most proud of, and that is, we're a place now that celebrates rather than tolerates diversity. And the best way to get people together is get them to know each other. It's pretty hard to hate somebody that you know. And so those are great words today. Thank you for sharing those with us, and thanks again for all that your mom and your dad did for our community. Next, I want to bring up just a good friend of mine, Harold Bailey, Dr. Bailey. a lot of you here know Dr. Bailey for his role in the African American Affairs Department in the state government. That's where Dr. Bailey and I got to know each other. I was a state legislator. I was on the Appropriations and Finance Committee. Dr. Bailey was in charge of African American Affairs. His budget was part of my budget work that I did, and I just I gained a lot of respect, and I gained a mentor and a friend out of that process. And so now he's with the NAACP, and they're in good hands with him in charge in the state of New Mexico. And I'd like to have Dr. Bailey come up and share a few thoughts with us as well. And we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Dr. Bailey, I'll tell you that.
Appreciate it, buddy. All right, thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. It's just a couple of things I wanted to say. First of all, I'd like to thank Mayor Berry for his support. It probably wouldn't have become a reality without his backing. I just want to thank the Salisbury family for sharing your parents with us. One thing I would like to say as far as Ms. Salisbury and Mr. Oliver Salisbury, they did very important things 50 years ago. So I think the young people, not too young, but the young people should realize, what are we going to do to carry on this struggle? I know it's Black History Month, but it's no time to take a vacation or have a party, because the movement continues, and it's a very important day. Every time we drive by here, we'll see Carnis Salisbury's name up here, and I'm just happy to be a part of this particular celebration. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Harold. Next, I'd like to bring up our Housing Authority, the head of our Housing Authority, Miss Linda Bridge. She's got a few comments that she'd like to make as well, and then we'll get on with the business of officially showing you the letters on the building here. So, Linda, nice to see you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. On January 16, 2013, the Albuquerque Housing Authority Board of Commissioners passed a resolution, of which the last line stated that the Albuquerque Housing Authority Administrative Office Building at 1840 University Boulevard Southeast, Albuquerque, New Mexico, shall now be known as the Carnis Salisbury Building. And I'd like to present the family with a copy of that resolution. I just want to state how very proud I am of that action taken on behalf of our Board of Commissioners to name our building after this incredible woman, and how fortunate I am to have been able to learn about Carnis Salisbury. I think we're very fortunate as a city to have Mr. and Mrs. Salisbury in our history books, and we're a better city as a result of that. I would like to recognize our Board of Commissioners, two of which could be here with us today. We have with us Mr. Stephen Vogel and Mrs. Rebecca Chavez. Not with us today is Janet McHard and Roxanne Rivera-Wiest. I'd also like to recognize the hardworking staff here at the Albuquerque Housing Authority, if you guys can all wave. These are the folks that work tirelessly every day to continue to try to provide those housing services to those most in need here in Albuquerque. And with Mrs. Salisbury's name on our building, it'll inspire us to continue that work that we do every day to make sure those that are most in need have access to housing. And we just want to thank you for the education we've received about Mrs. Salisbury, and thank you for allowing us to put her name on our building.
Thanks, Linda. Thank you. Linda is our new director of the Housing Authority, and one of the things that we've been working on for several years when we took over the administration was we wanted to start a housing authority. We wanted to give it some autonomy. So I want to thank our Housing Authority board members. Several of these folks are folks that I handpicked. I said this is one of the really important things I want to do. We picked the cream of the crop, and they're getting things moving, but they wouldn't be getting things moving without the great employees. So I do want to echo what Linda said. This is important work. It's important work to a lot of people. This affects families and a lot of folks around Albuquerque. So once again, thanks to all the employees that do such great work on behalf of the city of Albuquerque. With that, let's give these fellows a break. Their arms are going to get tired. Patricia, you want to come up here and why don't you count it down for your mom here?
Okay, and one thing I forgot to say when I was introducing family.
Yep. Please.
My mom was Harold's mother-in-law.
Oh, no kidding.
I'm sorry.
And he still wants to honor her. That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, count
Okay.
it down.
5,
4,
4,
3,
3,
2,
2,
1.
1.